Good morning, everybody. Well, it's actually not morning here, it's afternoon, but by the time I get this up, it'll probably be morning. I just wanted to talk a little bit today about masks. I used to advocate, well, still do, advocate keeping a supply, small supply, not a big one, of masks on hand. Before COVID-19 came out, uh, I always recommended people putting a couple in their 72-hour kit and keeping some in their preparedness supplies because you never know what might happen. There might be a dust storm, there could be, um, you might have to mitigate mold in your house, somebody might get sick, you might have somebody with a weakened immune system that you have to take care of. And having a small supply of masks on hand gives you that leeway to be able to take care of a situation without having to worry about whether or not the store actually has any on hand, which apparently when COVID came out and they were started recommending masks was a big deal because I don't know about your places, but our town ran out. Of course, there were a lot of us that sew and had material on hand that we started sewing masks and making masks for people. I don't know if I still have. No, I think I put them away. I put them away. When I started making masks, of course, everybody was worried about the filter supplies and things like that. And I actually did the research and found out exactly how the N95 masks were made, what was the best material to use for it. Now, a lot of it I didn't have on hand, but for some strange reason, I actually had the polypropylene quilted layer that you put in the middle for the filter. So I took out some of my material and I started making masks. I did sell a few of those. And then, as everybody got masks and things like that, it died down. And then I started making masks for another lady in town. Paid me, it was piecework and two bucks a mask. And then she turned around and sold them for whatever. And then I started making masks on my own because I thought I was going to be doing something else and I wasn't going to be able to work this lady. And then that didn't turn out, so I started making masks on my own. Then it dawned on me about a month ago that there is a call for single layer masks. Now, I know what you're going to think. Single layers aren't going to protect as well as a 2-layer mask or an N95 mask or whatever. And you're right. For one thing, they've only got the single layer to filter anything that might come into you or anything that might go out of you. The thing of it is that there are some people out there that are not able to wear any mask because they're all 2-layer or they all have the filter and they simply cannot draw in enough air to be able to make it efficient for them to be able to go out and shop or do activities or anything of the kind. So it dawned on me that some of these people have been showing up at the stores without masks so they can breathe, right? But now there are no more grocery stores in town where you can go where you can get away with that anymore. You have to wear a mask in every one of them now. There have been a few people push the point and not go in with a mask. And they haven't been challenged too heavily here. I haven't heard of too many people here getting so bent out of shape that somebody's not wearing a mask that they literally verbally attack them and sometimes physically. I just heard on the radio not too long ago this morning that there was a fellow that walked out of a store that did not have a mask on, and a lady literally followed him. Now, you want to talk about social distancing, right? She was several aisles away when she saw him leave the store without the mask on. She left her groceries, followed him out of the store, lowered her own mask to spit on him, and then started yelling at him for not having a mask on. This is not reasonable behavior. This is not clear thinking. So there are some people out there that are just a little bit around the bend with this mask wearing thing. They've become mask Nazis, if you will. Although I do have to wonder sometimes if maybe they're one of those people that can't get enough oxygen and they're not thinking clearly. Or perhaps they just feel so strongly about what they believe that they'll go to any length in order to get other people to wear masks. But I think that's a little bit overboard. I mean, you're invading his space and his social distancing when you don't have to. He was already outside when she accosted him. And then taking down your own mask in order to, assault someone, essentially. I mean, they do consider that assault now. So there is a certain stigma that comes with not wearing a mask right now. And whatever the reason is for people not to wear a mask, for instance, like I said, maybe they can't breathe through it. My mother-in-law has a very bad asthma condition. She's very sensitive to different things, and usually already her life is limited because she will limit her shopping to times when the stores are not crowded so that perfumes don't bother her. Underarm deodorants don't bother her. Aftershave. She'll avoid the flower section of the store, although she loves flowers. Outside, they don't bother her. Inside the house, they're a problem. But now she's wearing this mask that's a heavy leather mask, that has holes punched in it and a filter behind it so that she feels safer in going out to the store. And I can't blame her because, frankly, with the years of bronchitis and asthma and allergies that she has had, if she caught this, she's very much at risk of having this kill her. And so I don't blame her a bit. Before anything was even mandatory, as soon as it picked up and she started wearing a mask, if I went to town with her, I wore a mask around her in the event that I had picked something up that I wouldn't give it to her. Now, there are others I know that kind of go the other way. They've got asthma and they limit themselves like she did, but they aren't wearing a mask because they can't breathe. The damage is already done to their lungs. They cannot breathe hard enough, pull it in hard enough to get the oxygen in their system to be able to function. So they go without a mask. But they can, maybe, I'm hoping, breathe if it's just a single layer. That will get them a mask that they can breathe through, that they don't get exhausted with, that if they had to go to the store, that they could. And I think I hear my people outside. Hang on just a minute. So, see, my pause button works great on this phone. The other phone don't have one. So I was talking about the reasons people wear masks, and why I made the single layer ones. So I mentioned people that have legitimate breathing problems that can't get in enough air. There's people that have concerns about oxygen. We've heard it all about capturing CO2, breathing in your own breath, not being able to get enough oxygen, things like that. Well, the single layer masks actually help that CO2 to escape. So they don't have that excuse anymore to not wear a mask when going into the store. And again, I'm going to argue that having a single layer mask is better than having no mask in this situation. The other reason that people wear masks, or rather I should say don't want to wear masks, is because they believe that the mask is just a device to see how compliant you are with government control, and that it will eventually be used to control you, to keep you from being able to do whatever you want. Some people view this as political, others view it as religious, but it all comes down to that control issue. With the people for political reasons, whatever they may be, they argue about free speech, freedom of expression, freedom to assemble, um, freedom to protest, in which case they're protesting by not wearing a mask, freedom to basically act as a person with free agency and not be told what they must and must not do. These individuals also, unfortunately, a great many of them do believe that the virus itself is either a fake or a real virus that is not as dangerous as it's made out to be, but is being used, hyped up as something to control the population. And when you think about it, they have, for whatever reason. You might believe it's for our own safety. Others will believe that it's for their own, government purposes or the purposes of the powers that be or whatever. Whatever it is that you believe, in a sense, they have. They have kept us from going to places of worship, to going out to eat, kept us from assembling together in for sporting events, for work. In a lot of cases, my husband lost his last job because even though they were social distancing at 6 feet apart and nobody had been sick, because one person was reported as having been tested positive 3 weeks before, which means that the 14-day quarantine period would actually have run out. And if anybody was going to get sick from it in that time, they would have, but they still dismissed everybody because, they're shut down now. They can't fulfill their contracts, and these are government contracts, so they're important. It was considered a non-essential, not non-essential, it was considered an essential job because of what they were doing. And they're shut down now because of one person in a place that was actually not in a crowded situation. They sanitized the place before and after work and on breaks. They did not wear masks, but they were more than 6 feet apart individually. When they had breaks, they stayed separate from each other, just to make sure of everything. And still, one person was enough to shut them down. And 200 and some employees are out of work. So, there is something to be said for this theory that it's just a control. Now, when you're a religious person, and by religious, I mean in this particular instance, I mean fundamentalist Christian, which I am pretty fundamental. However, I can tell the difference between the mark of the beast and a device that is, and by device I don't mean a thing, I mean a specific agenda that might be used to shut the country down. I do have reason to believe that I will not go into in these videos that this very real virus is being used for that purpose. Okay? But I won't get into this with anyone. I will not argue with you. If you put anything mean in the comments, I'll delete it. Because that's not my purpose here. I'm not here to sit and debate about whether we are or are not, going downhill because of a conspiracy of men that intend our downfall, or if it's just a wild theory out there somewhere that's been floating in the phlogiston for 40 years. So anyway, The thing is that religious people see this as, if not the mark of the beast or a mark of the beast, that it is leading to the mark of the beast, which it says you cannot, without this mark, you cannot buy or sell. Okay, so consider this. If I cannot go into a store unless I wear the mask, without that mask, I cannot buy or sell. Now, we're not at the point yet where I can't sell things unless I have a mask on. But when you consider that some of the masks that I have sold in the past, the people I have sold them to, we have by mutual agreement worn a mask in order to exchange, or run a contactless system where I drop them in a box and they've got the payment sitting there waiting for me, and I pick up my payment, and then when I'm gone, they open the door and get their stuff. In a sense, therefore, some things cannot be sold without the mask. So this parallel between the two systems, the mark of the beast or wearing a mask or compliance with government controls, is to these people an indicator that the actual mark is very, very close. Now, Walmart, as far as I know, and probably some other places too, are allowing exemptions, but you have to tell them at the door. If you have a health exemption, they will let you enter without a mask, but you have to get this health exemption from your doctor. And I don't know what all is involved in that. You can tell them that it's a religious exemption, in which case they can't tread on your religious rights because of the First Amendment, and therefore they have to let you through, and they will not argue the point. They're not supposed to argue the point. So if they do, you can report them to a manager because they're not supposed to. You can tell them it is political. Now, up here in Laramie, they're not really challenging anybody. They'll offer you a mask. If you don't have one when you go in the door, you can refuse it and go on. And they kind of keep track of you in the store, but beyond that, they don't really do much of anything else. There are, however, in the same group of rules that tell them that you can have a religious or health exemption, that if somebody says it's political, they're supposed to try to encourage them in some areas of the country to go ahead and wear a mask, and if they don't, then they report it to a manager or a compliance officer, which they do have. They wear a yellow vest. And that compliance officer will follow you around for a little bit and try to get you, and then talk to you and try to get you to wear the mask. And if you won't wear a mask, then in some places, New York, Portland, Seattle, Phoenix, Detroit, Chicago, Austin, in some places they can call the police and report that you have not worn a mask into the store in compliance. There, as far as I know, they don't arrest anybody because, of course, you get enough people arrested for something like this, and then you've got a class action lawsuit. Sorry, there was a fly. You've got a class action lawsuit that is about having your rights challenged to, to freedom of movement, basically. So they really aren't cracking down on it. You're almost more in danger of running into one of these people that is a little bit unhinged about whether or not you're wearing a mask. There was another story about this morning about a guy that a very large man that actually, big, tall, broad, not overweight, but very tall, large man that overpowered and shoved a woman, very petite woman, out the door very harshly when she tried to come into a store because she didn't have a mask on. So there are instances out there where some people might think it's okay to take action on something like that, but it's not, because this has to do in the end with free will. Now, with that free will, you can choose or not choose. You can choose to comply for whatever purpose, or you can choose not to, but it's our free will. Unfortunately, some people like to force people to do things, and that's when you get unjust laws or people thinking that they can enforce it by shoving someone around or spitting on them or whatever. Since I'm on the subject of masks, well, no, I'll leave this off here and do a different video because I'm already at 20 minutes. So I would like to tell everybody to be safe and be blessed and be prepared above all things for whatever might come your way with these interesting times. I love you all.